In this little video, we're going to be learning the very first part of Beethoven's Für Elise. Let me play for you the part that we're going to do. That's all. Let's talk about the right hand first. Now, there are two ways in which I'm going to be using numbers in this video. The first is to tell you the fingerings, and the second is to count beats in a measure. So first with the fingerings. Now, the way that the fingers are numbered in piano is 1, starting with the thumb, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And similarly on the left hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's like a mirror image, the way they're numbered. Now, it would be different, for example, with guitar. This would be called 1. But in piano, this is called 2, and the thumb is called 1. So I'm going to call out the numbers for the right hand on this part. 5, get my falsetto working here. 5, 4, 5, 4, 5, 2, 4, 3, 1. 1, 2, 4, 5. 1, 2, 4, 5. 1, 5, 4, 5, 4, 5, 2, 4, 3, 1. 1, 2, 4, 5. 1, 5, 4, 3. And there's no reason to repeat that because you can play it back as many times as you want. So let's move on to the left hand. Now this is simpler. It just goes 5, 2, 1, 5, 1, 2, 5, 2, 1, and then again 5, 2, 1, 5, 1, 2, 5, 2, 1. And once again, you can play it back as many times as you want. Now we want to put the hands together. And you'll notice that the left hand doesn't start at the beginning along with the right hand. It waits, right? The right hand starts, and then the left hand comes in only a little later. So you have to get the timing right on this. Now, I think the most useful thing for me to do for the purposes of the video will be to play it at 3 different tempos. First very slow, then medium, and then fast, up to speed. And what you can do is play it back. You know, you can put your phone or your tablet right here and just see if you can play along. See if you can do the same thing in real time. Or how many times it takes you to practice before you can do that at a given tempo. Now, when you're counting a tempo, when you're doing a certain tempo, you're counting in your head. And this is the second way that numbers come in here. You're counting beats. And this is where the time signature comes in and the tempo marking, if there is one. So if you look at the first measure of your music on this piece, you'll see a time signature which says 3/8. So there's a little 3, and then underneath it there's a little 8. And that means that there are 3 beats in each measure, and that each one of those beats is an 8th note. Now this should really be listed as 6/16 time. And the reason why is because the majority of the measures in the piece actually have 6 beats, and those beats are 16th notes. For instance, this measure, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to be counting 6 beats, not 3. And another thing you'll notice is that the first 2 notes do not come, the very first 2 notes of the song, they don't come at the beginning of the first measure. They come at the end. So there's silence for those first 4 beats. If you're counting 6, you'd be counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's only on the last 2 that those notes come in. So this is the way you would count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. Now, mostly you won't actually be counting out loud, but that's what you'll be doing in your head. Okay, so let's do the slow tempo. And I'm not going to count all the way through. I'll just count at the very beginning so to give you a feel for what the tempo is going to be. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. that's really slow. And just to illustrate how slow, I'm going to do a little stunt here. I'm going to take these two chocolate mints, right? And I'm going to put them on the keys. And I'm going to play it again at that tempo, and I'm going to try to open them up while I'm playing without missing any of the notes. So let's see if I can do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Easy. I did it in half the time. If I was really good, I would put them back. But I'm not that good. Anyway, I guess my articulation and expression and everything suffered a little bit while doing that. But the point is just that there's a lot of extra time in there. You know, well, if I can do that, you should be able to play just the notes without doing that. And you'll be surprised once you actually know the notes that, you know, how quickly you'll be able to increase the speed. When you know the notes, it's like that Sound of Music song, you know, when you know the notes to sing it. When you know the notes to sing, you can sing most anything. When you know the notes to sing, you can sing most anything. And of course, it's not really literally true. You know, most of the work is done after you already know the notes. But I think it does contain an essential truth, which is that you do have to know the notes first. You know, people will say, well, I've learned the piece, I just haven't memorized it yet. Well, then you haven't really learned it. You know, how can you express what you want to do with the piece if it's not coming out of you, it's still coming off a piece of paper? So with learning to play piano stuff well, it's not learn then memorize. It's memorize then learn. But anyway, let's go back and do the medium tempo here. So this will go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and finally we'll do the fast tempo, which will be up to speed if I can even count it that fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we've got the notes. So let's talk now a little bit about interpretation and articulation and dynamics and pedal and all these things, details. So the first thing I want to emphasize is the shaping of phrases. What does this mean? Well, a musical phrase, it's similar to what a phrase means in the context of language. It's a single short idea. And the first phrase in Für Elise is this. Now, when I say to shape a phrase, what I mean is that you don't want to play all of the notes exactly the same way. I mean, you wouldn't want to play it like where they're all as loud as each other and there's no variation. You know how when people talk, you don't want to talk in a monotone. So if I talk in a monotone, I might say something like, in this video, we are learning how to play Beethoven's Für Elise. We hope that by the end of it, we will be able to play it accurately and well. You don't want to talk that way. It's boring. You would want to say, in this video, we are learning to play Beethoven's Für Elise. We hope that by the end of it, we will be able to play it accurately and well. Now, of course, that's exaggerating, but you get the idea. You want to shape your musical phrases the same way you shape phrases when you're talking. So how do we shape this first one? Now, I'll make an excuse, and that is that this little upright doesn't support a full range of dynamics compared to like what a Steinway Grand would. And the iPhone doesn't pick up a full range of dynamics, but hopefully something will come through. So what you want to do on this phrase is something like this. Louder, 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 softer, softer. So you notice this E note here. This is an E. It comes 3 times. 1, 2, 3. So each of those times you want it to be a little bit louder. And then see how it gets softer again at the end of the phrase. Now you don't want to exaggerate it that much when you're actually playing. You know, like, that sounds bad. You're punching the notes when you're doing that. But you do want to shape it. And if you exaggerate a little bit when you're practicing, then that's good because it will get the kind of shape that you want. So you want to be, now if you actually look in the music, some copies of this have dynamics markings where they will tell you to get louder. Louder, 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 softer, softer, until the middle of that phrase. And then get softer. This is resolving, it's coming down, and you want to get that to be soft. Okay, so then what comes next are these 2 short phrases. And these are shaped similarly, right? It's the same fingers in particular. Now what you want is you want the second one of those to be a little bit bigger than what the first one is. Like that. Now when I put all these together, it would be something like this. And each of those little phrases is increasing inside itself as well. It's louder, 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 like that. Of course that's exaggerated, but that's what you want to do. Now, with the left hand, we put in the left hand. The main thing to understand here is that you have to balance the hands in a proper way. What do I mean by balance? Well, you don't want the left hand to dominate. Listen how bad this would sound if the left hand was playing louder. You don't want that. In fact, you want it balanced the other way, where it's the right hand that's louder. The left hand is playing a supporting role here. Now I will tell you that what physically makes the sound in here, of course, is strings. It's the hammers striking strings. And the strings that make the sounds on the lower notes here are both thicker and longer than the strings on the higher notes. So they will naturally create more sound, and you have to compensate for that. But here you have to do more, because you don't want to just compensate to where they're equal. You want the right hand to be louder. So what's a good idea is to practice the left hand and see how quiet you can make it. Make it as quiet as you can. And then you don't necessarily have to have it that quiet when you're actually playing it, but the practice is good. The main thing is just to get to where you can do the hands independently. You can make the dynamics of the left hand totally independent of what the dynamics of the right hand are. Now the final thing to talk about is pedal, and there's a little bit of flexibility on this, but you want the pedal to be down with these groups in the left hand. So the pedal goes down, and then it's going to come up, and then it's going to go down again, and then it's going to come up and then go down again. So you might pedal something like this. Down, up, down, up, down, up. Now what you don't want is you don't want the pedal down during this part. See how that blurs together when you do that? Now, of course, there are some pieces and some styles where you want to blur, but not so much in this one. There's a little bit of blurring, but not on this part here, where the notes would just, where that would bleed together like that. You don't want that. You want that to be clear. And then the pedal blurs those together, and then it comes off. And then, so it's blurring together during each of these groups here, and then it's going to come off. Okay, so let's do it one more time, trying to put it all together. And in the next video, we'll move on to the next part. and so on.